Every time I have that song on my intro, I just want to let it keep playing because that's the best part of the song. But I sacrifice that for you guys. Okay. I want you to know that I'm sacrificing my joy for you so I can share my joy that you can enjoy. So much joy, but not the dishwasher kind because actually that's in the hands. It's different. Anyway, welcome to the show. Happy Monday. I know, less beard. Don't freak out about it. It's a thing. It'll grow back. Welcome to the show. I am so pumped for tonight. We're going to have Jeff Barker on from Chasing 80's Toys, but a few points before we get into that. I want to say hello to everyone, but that's lazy. So we're going to say hello to everyone individually as much as I can. Okay. So I see Chasing 80's Toys, Bjorn Jorgensen, Johnny Jorgensen, Jim Largo, Rez, Scuba Pete, Keith Knight, Daniel Carhoonan. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I see Grandpa Jorgensen in the background. I see Ted Melich, Michael Schaefer, Captain, Nerd Rage, Gojitron, and I think that's everybody. If I miss anybody, that's my fault. I'm old and I'm dumb. But thank you all for being here so much. I really appreciate you. Ritapalooza was amazing. Started the edit today. It's going to be a really long video, but we'll see that on Thursday, Godzilla willing. Keep your fingers crossed. Thanks for your patience. Also, I have word. There's a ton of boxes that came today. I don't have them here yet, but I'll have them later. Look for an unboxing either this weekend or next week. It is not going to replace the feature video for next week. Fun stuff. Good times. However, that's not why we are here. We're here for Mr. Jeff Barker, the third part of the trifecta of Chasing 80's Toys, which is really cool. There's a great story about how they all came together, which you've all heard, having seen them on other shows and on their own shows, so we're not going to tread that too much. I want to bring Jeff on to talk about the process of going from being one person who's just kind of out there and then connecting to other collectors and looking at things in kind of the larger internet state of things, because it's a different process. But I want to get to know Jeff, and I think it's a good subject to do. But without further ado, I'm going to bring up Jeff Barker right now. Jeff Barker, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I am good. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Yep.
So Daniel says I pronounced their last name correctly, which is wonderful. Makes my life so much easier. That's good to know.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
We were messing with lighting before the show. 100% my fault. I started the whole thing, so the lateness is 100% on me. And adding
I'm new
to the lack of professionalism, I ordered some food that was supposed to arrive 45 minutes ago, and it should be here in about 5 minutes, which means I'm going to step away from the camera for about 2 minutes to get it. You won't be able to hear me, but I'll be able to hear you. So don't worry, we're going to keep going. Absolutely. Exactly. So I guess the first question that I want to ask, again, assuming the people know the basic story of how things came to be. Obviously, the big story is the Defiant with Scuba Pete, and how then Chris meanwhile put that on the Chasing 80's Toys channel, and all of that kind of coalesced eventually into just becoming a featured member of the team, which I think was a brilliant move, Chris.
Yeah, Chris's idea. This is awesome.
It was a good one because you're good at filming. You have a very calm, soothing, and intelligent voice, and you obviously know your shit when it comes to toys. By the way, we swear here.
Certain things.
It's okay. Yes, you know quite a bit, and more than most, I would say. Where did that start? Because I know you're also really heavily into comic books, which we'll get to, but I think everybody has different things that they fall in love with, but then there's a deeper love where you want to know everything about the thing.
Yeah.
Where did that start for you with toys? When did this become a thing for you, wanting to just get into it?
The first toys I can really remember having were some Adventure People, and I've kind of rekindled jumping back into those guys, and thankfully they're not completely outrageous expensive yet.
They will be after this show, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think the story is the framework of it is pretty familiar for a lot of people. Where we all jumped in to Star Wars when it came out. I mean, 77. I can remember I was 7 years old when it came out, and I can remember laying in bed at night, literally the night I saw it in the theater, and staring at the ceiling just in complete awe. And there's your stuff. I'll keep going. He can hear us. By the way, everybody in the chat, hi. Goji, your video on Chris's channel, on our channel. I still can't get used to calling it our channel. Chris's channel. Your collection is really cool. I love how eclectic that is. And good to see everybody in there in the chat. Michael Schaefer, Scuba, Connor, Bjorn, everybody, Keith, and just kind of looking through here. It was Daniel. Nice little group here. So yeah, I'll just keep chatting about myself here for a second. Star Wars was the biggie, and I think really getting into those figures and really trying to track down everything we could on that stuff. I had my family always looking at it too, and you can kind of see the collection behind me is a lot of it is Star Wars still. What did you buy? What kind of dinner did you get?
Well, there's a pizza over there and there's beer in there.
Oh, that's a good night. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so Star Wars stuff was kind of the gateway drug for me. Actually, adventure people were, and then gateway, and then Star Wars just poured gasoline on the fire. And I still have most of my collection of figures from Star Wars. I've got a few of the ships and stuff, but the Walker and Snowspeeder and a few in my original X-wing, that kind of stuff. But then that was always a big thing for years. And then G.I. Joe came out, and that's what got me into comics too. Was G.I. Joe was G.I. Joe 15, buying that first book. I think that was like 84.
So with G.I. Joe comics, did the comics come first or the figures?
The comics did. The comics. And I think one of the things that really attracted me to action figures is the level of detail to them. And the first time, yes, I got into the comics and started loving them, but then I saw them on the pegs at the store. And the first time I saw like Rock and Roll with his M60 machine gun, because I've always been a big military history buff and really into history and just especially military history. And so even when I was a kid, I was into that stuff. And when the first time I saw Rock and Roll's M60 machine gun and Snake Eyes' Uzi and realized how detailed and accurate they were, I was hooked on it. And so and I kind of started getting out of Star Wars and transitioned into G.I. Joe. And then G.I. Joe kind of ran its course for me, and that's why I only collect from 82 to like 85. Because in 85, I was in high school and I was kind of getting out of toys. I still, collected comics here and there. And but I was kind of out of the toys by then. So I never got into He-Man. I never got into Transformers. In fact, Jody just sent me my first ever Transformer, Optimus Prime. yeah. I hope you did too, because I need pizza later on. And so that's the first time I ever got into that stuff was just like a month ago when Jody sent me an Optimus Prime. A Chinese knockoff one that's just absolutely perfect, and it's amazing. And so first one on that. And,
there's a ton of those, man.
It's so cool. So I never got into that. So that's kind of what started the whole thing for me.
I have a memory of going to what would be the early 80s approximation of what you would see as an all anime store now, like all Japanese import kind of stuff.
Yep.
Now, chat is going to get really mad at me. Don't get too mad, chat. But
you're gonna eat pizza.
I was no. The pizza's gonna have to wait. No. How do I say this without really triggering people? Okay, no, I'm just gonna rip the Band-Aid off.
Do it.
So this is what I found out, because I have a vivid memory of going in there. So this would have been whatever the first year Transformers came out, which I think was 84.
Okay.
84,
like
84.
Yeah, I know nothing about them.
When we just happened to go into this shop, and there's just toys everywhere.
Yeah.
They had like Shogun Warrior stuff. They had
I love Shogun Warriors.
They had Micronauts, like you name the famous Japanese toy line, they were in there. And I remember seeing them. and I saw and I pointed at, because I already had a sound wave, and I said, "Hey, Mom, look, I think that's a bootleg sound wave." No, sir, no, ma'am. That was a
Kids.
Japanese import. That was the original sound wave.
Yeah, it really was.
And I didn't get it because my parents and I both thought it was a knockoff. Oh, Menzinger Z, Transor Power.
This is one of my
Right?
favorite. This is a leftover from my childhood. And this is one of my favorite toys left over from my kid. I don't have many leftover from that are outside of Star Wars. And this is I have like 2 other ones, but I love these little die-cast guys. And those are awesome. I cannot believe the prices on those damn things these days.
Yeah, like we could have had that for like $8.
Yeah, I was in Portland, Oregon, a month or so ago for a car race, and went to a couple vintage stores. And if you watch Chris's toy hunt video, then you'll see it. But they had like 5 of them in the box, pristine, on the shelf. The die-cast ones. They're like $700 a piece. And it was like, you got to be kidding me! I always knew they'd gotten expensive, but not that bad.
Well, like, it's the silliest things go up in value. Like, even recent stuff.
Yeah.
Spoiler for the Retropalooza recap, guys. This cat always comes around to our booth, and he always has like bins upon bins upon bins of flea market finds that he just gives away because he watches our YouTube channels and he loves us. I appreciate it. I don't fully understand it, because some of the stuff he's handing over, I'm like, dude, you could flip that for like,
yeah, I know,
even half of what it's worth and make like you. Are you just that flush? I don't get it. Like, he handed me. I'm not going to spoil everything, but one of the things he gave me was a Blu-ray copy of Phantasm 2, the collector's edition from Shout Factory.
Nice.
They put that out in 2013. It's out of print. And currently, you're not going to find it for less than $40-$50.
Wow.
And that's an easy flip. It's Halloween. People are looking for those movies. But
exactly.
He was like, I know you're into these movies. And he just handed me, I'm like, oh, you know.
Well, and I find that too. And I know Pete does too, because he gets stuff just given to him all left and right. Is these people understand, not these people, people understand that these things are valuable, but they have no clue about how valuable they get in certain circles. And so, if you're plugged into that, then yes, if you want to flip stuff, you can, but it's also nice just to have that.
Yeah, it's fun. Absolutely.
I'm reading the chat right here. Bjorn asked what's in the white cabinet behind me. The one with the lights on is Star Wars on one side and G.I. Joe on the other side. So yeah,
there you go.
But yeah, it's weird how that stuff's gone up.
Well, right. In that guy's case, this was stuff he didn't want. He was bringing just to bring, but he always gives us first crack at it, whatever we don't want. I think all of it has intrinsic value. Everything I saw had some sort of intrinsic value to it. And he was like, well, whatever you don't want, I'm going to go trade for some and insert name of an abhorrently expensive thing later. I'm like, you could have taken all this stuff. But, and I don't say that to cheapen the experience. I'm appreciative of it. He's a really good guy. And you can see the grin on his face when there's that spark of recognition. Again, I don't want to spoil what else he gave us, but I will spoil what he gave one person. He had this G.I. Joe walkie-talkie, so it was made to look like a field radio or an old cell phone. So you had like the base unit, and then you had the walkie-talkie.
Nice, I've seen those. Those are awesome. Really,
it still worked.
Wow.
We put a battery in it, and Billy picked up the thing and walked about 200 feet away and was just like, "Can you hear me, Chodes?" And then
over.
Right.
Yeah, you got to say over. Yeah.
So it was crazy. And you see all these different things, and I think that, and this is something I'll be going into more on the Nostalgia Tax series that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I think that no matter how much it costs you financially, if it's something that brings you joy, and as long as you're not getting ripped off for the value, who cares?
Well,
like money, you can't take money with you, and you can't take the toys with you, but you'll have those memories until the end of your days.
Well, and that's we are all in this for an emotional reason. I mean, every purchase, everything we have is for an emotional reason. Everything has an emotion tied around it. Obviously this guy does for me. Most of the stuff behind me does. Everything does, actually, to some degree, some more than others. And I mean, that's economics. Basically, you're always going to find somebody that wants what you have to some degree. And so I don't flip my stuff very much. I don't sell it. I started out getting this just to fulfill an emotional want.
Right.
And I think most people that get that way, and we dive into it. And after a while, like this Imperial shuttle behind me, I might sell it. I may not. I don't know. I got a really good buy on it. It's the FAO Schwartz exclusive. It's never been out of the box. I kind of want to just take it out of the box and hang it from the ceiling, though. And so I don't know.
Take it out of the box. Take it out. Come on,
I'm probably going to
take it out of the box.
I've already told Chris we're going to do an unboxing video of it, and
right.
And so that's coming out of the box here sometime soon. But everything we do, I mean, this is an emotional hobby. I mean, most hobbies
has to be. And I also feel like a lot of the time too, like you'll have different types of collections, right?
Yeah.
So just as you have different types of collectors, different types of collections. Yep. So like, for example, you collect a specific set of years for G.I. Joe. You're not all inclusive.
Right.
I'm the same with superpowers, as is well documented.
Yeah.
And I think there are some people that they have like that core collection, and they have rotators.
Yeah.
Where they go, I've had this for 6 months or 6 years or 16 years. Yeah. I've loved it. I'm not really using it. I want room for something else.
Yeah.
And they'll sell it at a decent price. Right.
Yeah.
Which is,
I mean,
you all know,
it's just like crowded as can be. Yeah, it's wall to wall.
Oh, give me a break. I got 4 16-gallon tubs stacked to the ceiling with boxes on top of that. I got sacks of it. I don't want to hear it. You have our room for your stuff. I have to make room in our room for my stuff. But I'm not complaining.
Well, and that's why. Yeah, I mean, that's why you have to. I found myself. I have to set guidelines for what I collect. I can't just. But it does bleed out. I've got some. Let's see, up here, some 6-inch figures. I told myself I would never buy 6-inch figures, but the sculpts on them are so damn cool. I've started getting into them a little bit.
Exactly.
I don't collect He-Man. I don't know anything hardly about He-Man, and so that's why.
This is the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe logo. That's a good starting point.
Well, I used to watch them, but I just never really collected them. And this is why I have this Eternia playset here that's going to go to Pete also. And that's how the Defiant. That's why I didn't mind selling off the Defiant, because I bought it. I have a tendency to want to rescue toys from bad places, and this pawn shop where I was at, not a bad place, but I didn't want it to go to somebody that was gonna not take care of it because it was so complete. And so
in that spirit, Melvor brings up a good point. Screw Billy, the guy that got the walkie-talkie. With all due respect to Melvor, you weren't there when the walkie-talkie showed up. I guarantee you I would have fought for you to get the walkie-talkie, but you weren't there. You couldn't claim it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love you, Melvor. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
It's all opportunity, right?
It is.
It's right place, right time, right price, and it just kind of goes out the door. But with comic books, you seem extremely serious about them.
Even more so than toys, probably.
Yeah, because I see the long boxes, and when I see long boxes, I know who I'm dealing with at that point.
And I'm in the middle of trying to replace all my cardboard long boxes with actually long-term plastic long boxes, and trying to make sure everything board and bag just right for long-term preservation. I've got graded stuff. I don't grade any of my toys. I don't really care to do that. And I don't collect box stuff very much. I have like 1 or 2 things that are boxed, and that's it. But on the toy stuff, I will grade them. And some of it is investment grade type stuff.
You mean the comics that you grade?
Yeah, the comics. Yeah. The comics I'll grade. I'll send things into CGC to get graded. I have a batch in there right now. I've got a comic at an auction house back in New York getting ready to be sold in auction in January. And so, it's definitely more serious for me.
So when it comes to the grading, I feel like it would be most beneficial for us to establish a framework and a baseline. Um, when you were talking about comics grading, it's a very different scenario than toys.
Very fine.
I am generally against grading as a rule.
Yeah.
I will make the exception when it comes to the really high end comics, the stuff that's really
Yeah, because you
because
got to know what you have.
right, and when
Yeah.
it's something that you intend to auction off, and that's very different
Yes.
than eBay.
Yes.
So
Oh,
if you're going to
completely.
grade a comic or a toy and put it on eBay, you're a scumbag. I don't like you. If you are someone who knows what you have but needs to know you need to establish a baseline. It's my understanding that some of the more reputable auction houses
Yeah.
will require the grading for them to put it up. Is that
Right.
correct?
That is correct. I mean, Heritage Auction is who I'm working with, and they're pretty reputable. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of that criteria on whether to grade something for it's dependent on the medium. I mean, comic books are a very transient medium with paper being versus plastic.
Mhm.
Yes, plastic degrades over time, but even a little bit of handling on a comic book can bump an
Oh yeah,
edge or a corner or crease something, and you're
hand oil, the whole bit.
hand
Yep.
oil over time. You know, you got to be careful how you handle certain ones. Like I said, I have maybe 3,500 comics and
Oh, is
maybe,
that all?
but I've been collecting since I was 15
Yeah.
or 12 or
Yeah,
whatever.
I have probably 150 to 200, but I stopped around 95, and then I've
Yeah.
just smattered from there.
Yeah. I've got a buddy
Even
who
then,
has,
it's like,
yeah, I've got a buddy who has probably 25 long boxes, and
mhm.
like I have half his collection, and it's, I've tried to winnow it down over the years to get a little bit more quality versus quantity, and
Mhm.
again, focus. I think that's a big thing for all kinds of collecting is choose your focus. Where do you want to
Yeah.
go? And for me, for comics, I for a long time I would buy some Batman stuff and DC things here and there, but I
Mhm.
focus more on the superhero genre with Marvel, and then the GI Joe stuff. I have 4 issues I'm missing to have a complete run of original GI Joe comic book line, and
Oh,
so
really?
and it's later ones where like number 123 and 128 where the print runs were really low. Hey, kitty.
Yeah, she's getting into stuff because
Yeah,
she
ours
feels
does
like
that
if I'm
too.
talking, then she can know some stuff. But
But yeah, the greatest stuff with
there,
comics is fun.
it can be.
Yeah,
Now, there's a question from chat that I want to lead into.
sure.
So I'm going to ask you a question that will then you'll whittle it down from there. So, and this is going to be a tough one.
Okay.
I like to think Kirby or Ditko.
Kirby.
I knew you were going to
Um,
say that. All right, Ditko all the way. Sorry.
I like both.
I'm a big
So in my profession, I'm a designer, and I started out as an
guy. Mhm.
illustrator. And so I actually started out doing comic book illustrations, not professionally, but just in high school. And it's one of the things that really
Mhm.
got me into drawing and painting. And so I always wanted to be a comic book illustrator. Never did, but adopted that style for a lot of the stuff that I draw and paint. And Michael Schaefer will always tell you, him and I exchange Alex Ross artwork all the time over chat. And just the artwork is been the gateway for me for a long time, as well as the stories and stuff. But so Kirby's artwork is so distinctive to me and so iconic that it's hard not to gravitate towards that the most.
And I would say if you're looking at number of credits, certainly Kirby wins
Yeah,
by default.
but the Ditko stuff's
Um,
awesome. I love both. I love Jim
yeah,
Lee, from
yeah.
the 80s. Jim Lee is one of my favorite artists. I
Jim
like
Lee kind
McFarlane.
of changed. Yeah, Jim Lee. Like I was doing, I started trying to emulate Ditko,
Yeah,
and then when McFarlane hit, I was like, oh. Then I
yeah,
saw like Jim Lee and Eric Larson, and I
yeah.
kind of became an amalgamation of the never anywhere near as good,
No,
obviously,
no, me neither.
but
Me neither.
because I was a very sequential artist, which is a big no no. And I couldn't get out of the like the patterns of it.
Yeah.
My brain works in that way. So I never went too far with it, but my style was probably better for cartooning than comic book art, but it didn't stop me from trying.
Yep.
And then I just gave up because drums took over. And
I'm the most musically untalented person around. So yeah,
well, there you go.
Yeah.
You're a better artist than I am, so it works out well.
We all have our creative outlets, don't we?
Exactly. Gochitron asks what your favorite comic character and or run is. I have a feeling what it is, but I don't want to say anything.
Well, I'm going to gravitate towards G.I. Joe, but also I got into the superhero stuff, X-Men, and originally, and so I got into Avengers, Iron Man, Thor, that kind of stuff later on. So the Chris Claremont stuff with X-Men is probably my favorite. The Dark Phoenix saga stuff, it was amazing because that's when I was really formative years for comic books. Right now I'm super into the horror comic stuff. Tomb of Dracula is one of my favorites, and Silver Surfer.
That's a great one.
Yeah, yes. I love the 70s horror comics right now. So I'm trying to get a full run of Tomb of Dracula. I'm never going to be able to afford a first appearance of Blade or Tomb of Dracula #1. It's just, unless I'm
those are only going to go up when that new Blade movie comes out too. Like they're already,
and they already have. They've already just shot through the roof. Comic books the last year and a half, 2 years, because of COVID stuff, people diving back into their closets, finding what they have gone absolutely through the roof compared to even toys. But favorite comic book character, I think Snake Eyes. For the longest time, it was Wolverine. Wolverine when I was younger. But yeah, also Silver Surfer. There's a ton I really like.
You know what my favorite run of Surfer is? It's the Mobius run, that limited edition Mobius run.
The 2-issue one. Yeah, that was amazing. And that original run was only like 18 issues from the 60s. After he was first introduced in Fantastic Four, I try to get anything I can with Silver Surfer stuff in it. And then that second run in the 80s was like 180 or so. Yeah, John Romita is awesome too.
Yeah, I wanted to make it, since we're both artists at heart, I want to get a little nerdy on this one. So I'm going to frame my opinion and you riff from there. So Ditko definitely has a lot to do with everything that we know, Spider-Man and Doctor Strange.
Yep.
I think that like when you take Romita Sr. and you look at his approach to Spider-Man, it kind of created the template of iconography from there. Like Ditko did the design, but like Romita kind of normalized it in a way that was easier to interpret. Whereas coming off of Ditko's very Ditko style, Romita kind of like made it almost like like you look at Ditko, if we're looking at toys, like he did the sculpt. Then the person who finalized, so like Romita filled in all the details and did like the deco on to make it to where this is this is the master of what this should look like. Right. And everyone kind of leapt off of Romita.
Yeah, I agree. And that didn't really change till McFarlane stuff came around.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of a golden era. Once they started moving into coloring with the computers and getting away from the hand coloring, that iconic comic book look, then of course changed and to what we have now, which you don't see that. I mean, you can, if you're into comics a little bit, you can pick one up and kind of just instantly tell within about a 5-6 year period where it came out. And for me, I love looking at the pencil sketches for a lot of these artists, because the inkers that don't get any play at all. And, I can't name an inker at all, but I can name the artist, but I can't name the guy who actually put the ink to it and did the line work. And, varying line work on stuff makes a huge difference. If you look at, comic books, everything has a black outline. It's just like animation until, what was the one? It was a Japanese style that came out. Samuel L. Jackson did the voice. Samurai Jackson.
Afro Samurai.
If you look at that, those characters don't have black outlines around them. They are color on color. color, butted up to color, and that was such a huge, to me, that was such a huge thing, and added such a different look to stuff that's it's absolutely amazing. So, I don't think inkers get enough credit.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. And I think a lot of that has to do with, like you said, the changes in technology for one.
Yeah,
But there was like from the mid 80s, like the late 80s to the mid 90s,
yeah,
there was this relatively short time period where a lot of your big tentpole pencilers were inking their own stuff for
yeah,
a long time.
yeah,
Whether that was like a power play
yeah,
from like a Talk Mac or whatever, it just seemed like that was like, I want controller makes it, so that you could just. I get it. Trust me, I get it. But at the same
yeah,
time, because there's so many people that were so influenced by that particular stable of artists, I think
right.
that the, for lack of a better term, the art of the separate inker kind of got lost and people just kind of
Yeah, it
forgot
did.
that was
Well, and a lot of
yeah.
those guys, once Image Comic broke, was formed. Image Comics was formed with
Mhm.
Jim Lee and McFarlane and Kirkman later on, and a bunch of those guys that really jumped into that. And Lee Feld, Deadpool can't draw feet sort of guy.
Definitely can't draw feet, that dude.
They're
But
very,
he can make one
they're
hell of
very,
a Levi commercial, though. That's the
yeah.
thing.
He can draw the hell out of pouches. Um, but once those guys broke off and really started the storytelling and the Neil Gaiman stuff, Sandman especially too, and the independent comic movement that really came about, Watchmen, even though that was a DC stuff, it still feels very independent. You're still feeling that today because I think, going Shabby, your question about how do you both feel about comics today, I think some of them are absolutely amazing and they're worthy of literature these days, especially some of the independent stuff that's out there. You look at trying to think of some of the ones out there. Even the remake of some of the stuff that's going on. You look at the Turtles things that's going on. The Last Ronin stuff. I haven't read them. I've heard it's really great, but the artwork is phenomenal through it.
Reminds me of like the second run when first publishing it picked up
Yeah, yeah,
Turtles. Like that very almost boxy
yeah,
style, where it's very like action oriented, which was
yep,
arguably was my favorite Turtles run.
yeah,
Which, funnily enough, and I didn't realize this as a kid right away, but the movie was more based on the comics than the cartoon, even though it
Was it?
had elements of the cartoons. Yeah,
See, another one I never
because
really got
there's
into was Turtle stuff.
yeah, because the movie, if you look at most of the specifics, they took elements of the earliest version of the comic with
Yep.
the current one at the time and melded it together, much like your MCU does today. So like
Yeah.
the entire Raph being off by himself and getting beat up by the Foot Clan and then dropped through the skylight in the antique shop.
Yeah.
That's all directly from a fairly recent at that
That's
time
cool.
Turtles
That's
comic
really
book.
cool. And I
And
love the
then the
mix of
whole
the two, of the
farm
old and
thing,
new.
yeah,
Yeah. And
exactly. And so many kids came out of that going, "It wasn't like the cartoon." It's like, well, it wasn't supposed to be,
right, it's
you
not supposed
know.
to be.
Um,
Yeah, I still go to my comic book store every week, and my local comic store. I've known the guy that owns it is a friend. I've known him for 25 years, and bought many comics from him. I used to have a box there where I'd have a certain comics pulled every month for me.
mhm.
I don't do that anymore because I'm focusing more on the older stuff. But I still go there every month, and seeing some of the newer ones there on there. There's the horror comics, the modern horror comic, the modern take on horror comics is really big right now. The Ice Cream Man comics, Something's Killing the Children is a really great comic. It's horror, but is really really well done storyline, and that after you read some of those, you just know that they're going to be made into movies anytime, and hence the prices on some of the early ones and some of the low run variants are through the roof.
And with those, I kind of trace that resurgence back to, and this is weird to say it, but looking back at like 2003, 2004, when that Freddy versus Jason had come out, there
Yeah,
was already there was already some comic adaptations that were kind of flying the flag a little bit.
yeah, they were.
That gave rise to a lot of slasher inspired stuff. It
Yeah,
blew up. so more people got into it that way, and then here we are, almost 20 years later.
Yeah.
Horror in its own right is a legitimate comic genre, whereas go back 50 years, that
There's
was like
inklings of
the
it.
crash. Yeah.
Yeah. I was
And it
was
was
really big. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that, like, just the whole Comics Code thing and all that.
Right. Oh, the Comics Code. Yeah, and that's gone now. That in the last few years, Comics Code Authority was dissolved. But a lot of
Thank
places
goodness.
it's been irrelevant for 20 years.
Oh, easily.
I was really big into Dark Horse comics when they came out, especially their adaptations of Aliens, and
Yes.
Predator, and The Thing. There's a 2-issue comic of The Thing that's absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I had that as a kid.
One of my favorite movies, and it's just it's in the box or someplace. But the Dark Horse stuff was really good, and I actually even tried to get a job at Dark Horse because they're in Portland. I'm in the Boise area, and they're in Portland. I would have moved there to work there at the time, but didn't happen. But yeah, the Dark Horse stuff was amazing for the longest time, and I think Image has taken over that mantle now as kind of the really cool independent comic. Image Comics went through so many changes after the original guys founded it. And then kind of Kirkman came along, and Walking Dead has really brought it out of those doldrums that they were in for a long time.
And I'm going to make one Kirkman comment. Obviously, I want you to rebut. We're going to take one more comics question, and we'll move on. Just set the frame for chat. The balls on Kirkman to end Walking Dead the way he did. I was like, sir, I was, yes.
I don't know it.
That's how you do it.
I don't know it. I stopped reading after, spoiler alert, everyone, after Glenn got killed. I stopped reading after that.
So all you need to know is that he put out the comic, no fanfare, no press release, no nothing. It's just done. It's just done. He's done with it.
That's cool.
And I don't know what the ending was. I don't care what the ending was. But just knowing, like, he just went,
I didn't know
I'm
that.
finished with it. And he didn't make a big deal out of it. He just kind of, because I think that ending it abruptly in that way, like, it spoke to the aesthetic and the narrative that he was trying to tell, the unpredictability of a post-apocalypse and all. I think it all fits in and speaks to the kind of guy, the kind of artist that Kirkman has grown into.
Yeah, he really
I think he always took a lot of risks, but I feel that, like, he knew that with all the AMC stuff and everything else and how big it had gotten, he said, at some point I have to end this. What's the way I want to do it?
He did it
on his own terms,
more than really an artist.
Yeah, and I think that he just kind of decided, well, I'm going to do one last punk rock thing before I get out of this game.
Exactly.
And take my money and run,
Yep.
And I really respected that. So
yeah, I need to kind of catch up on that.
From what I understand, if you get like the last 6 issues, you're probably going to be okay.
Yeah,
but I haven't delved into it myself. Last comic question, and then we're off the subject for the moment.
Sure.
Nerd Rage asked, "What are your favorite non-USA comics?"
Well, it's appropriate that Tony just came into the chat because of his influence. Action Force stuff, man. I've been trying to find it as much as I can. I love it, and it just dovetails completely right into my love of anything G.I. Joe from that time period, and the artwork and the cover work on that thing is phenomenal. And so I gotta say, Action Force is right now my favorite stuff. I don't have a complete run to start reading it, but I'm just collecting the comics at the moment.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you? I feel like you've already answered this question indirectly. I tend to be impatient when it comes to finding the issues I want to buy physically. So I buy them digitally and read them. And then, I wasn't sure if you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do that
because I want to read them, man. I got to read them.
There's actually some good free ones out there. I'm actually rereading the G.I. Joe series now, and it's free online. And so I'm rereading that now. Yeah.
And just to put face to name, Tony, pleasure to see you. Okay, so Shabby's got my number. I was going to say, like, hey, I'm all over Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd.
I never got into Dredd. The artwork always freaked me out a little bit. It was almost a little too cartoony for me. Almost a little bit Mad Magazine-y for me, a little bit. But man, that last movie, that Carl Urban movie, was it Carl Urban that was absolutely freaking love that movie. Just hit it out of the park.
So good.
They need to do the same thing now with Lobo.
Yes.
Same kind of movie with Lobo.
All right. Who would you put as Lobo?
Oh God. I don't know. I have no idea, but they'd have to do something like they did with Batman and put Keaton in there, or a Keaton type of guy where you're like, that's totally unexpected, but he hits it out of the park.
So the easy answer is the guy that played Aquaman. Honestly, I think that
Jason Momoa.
Yeah, because I think it is now.
Yeah.
But if you look at I think his portrayal of Aquaman was fine.
Sure. Yeah. It was fun.
But I wanted a semi-traditional Arthur Curry, somewhere in the middle.
Me too.
Somewhere between what we grew up on and what that character was for him. Something in the middle, I think would have been fine. And because as soon as I saw him, I'm like, dude, that's Lobo. What are you doing?
Completely.
That's Lobo.
But now he's the leading man type that plays the same character every time he goes someplace, and it's just like,
he's playing Jason Momoa in whatever costume. Hey, I'm Jason Momoa.
He could totally do it, but it would be the obvious one.
Right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Like The Rock is getting ready to play Black Adam because it's been his favorite thing, and he's been lobbying for it for years. I could see Momoa doing the same thing for Lobo now, like he used to do for Aquaman.
I'm trying to think of non-obvious people that would make Lobo work.
I don't know either.
Okay, here's a person that you would have to do Thanos level of CGI to pull off. However, the person I think would be amazing to see in that role, because I think he would get the humor, and go with me on this, chat, Patton Oswalt.
Oh, wow.
He's right?
You'd have to bulk up.
You'd have well, no, he doesn't have
the CGI. The CGI stuff. I don't want to see a bulked up. I don't want to see a bulked up Patton Oswalt. I love him too much the way he is.
Me either.
Yeah.
He reminds me of me.
Me
Absolutely.
too. Yeah.
Speaking of my appearance, Tony says it feels weird to see me not wearing a hat, but he likes to look. Yeah, I got my hairs cut and I got my beard trimmed, and I look less homeless now. It needed to happen, so here we are. Get used to this sort of a thing as I continue to grow my hair out.
I was going to mention that to you when we were chatting earlier.
Hats are not going away, folks. But I wanted to at least show you that I have hair. It's all here. Just a thing.
Well, I was going to wear a hat tonight, but the hat I was going to wear, Michael Schaefer makes fun of me too much with, so I decided not to wear it.
Why is that?
It's a fedora cowboy hat mix sort of thing, and it's cheesy.
That's okay. Speaking of things that require headwear, I understand you're a bit of a motorcycle guy.
I am. Guilty.
Where does that come from? Where does that start from?
Oh God, it's funny. Adventure People motorcycle. This is one.
I had the motorcycle. I didn't have the figure.
Yeah, I loved this when I was a kid. I just acquired this. This is not my childhood original. I don't have that one anymore. I think it actually started with this. And then when I was 12, my dad bought me a little dirt bike, which I still have. It's out in the garage, a little Suzuki 80 from 1976. And we used to go camping a lot. Living in Idaho, it's a very wilderness-oriented state. And so we spent a lot of time in the growing up in the wilderness, and so I spent a lot of time on a motorcycle on dirt roads, riding around with family and friends. And just got out of college, and my mom hated me. Never wanted me to have a road bike, so I never did. But then always had enduros or dirt bikes. And then when I was in college, just got out of college, and I was like, man, I'd like to. A friend of mine was like, yeah, we're selling my brother's road bike, a little Honda Shadow 750, and I'd been thinking about it. So for $500, I got into this motorcycle, and I've had one ever since. And so I've run the gamut of big cruiser bike to Harley style bikes to now I'm into adventure bikes where I can ride dirt and road and go for long trips on this thing and camp out off of it if I wanted to and that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Schaefer. Yeah, I have never. Yeah, where he says hat up, chat this side. I agree. I gotta be honest.
You're killing me.
Do it. Go. Let's see it. Captain, you're out of your mind. That's a great hat. That's a great hat.
I got to form up I could do this and become like John Carpenter's The
Please
Thing.
Don't. Please don't. Please don't. Like I can see where Captain Schaefer's going with this.
Yeah.
The brim on the sides is probably too wide.
It's have to work done to it.
Yeah, but it's a great hat, and it does work for you.
And only in certain occasions.
Right. Just this weekend, sitting at the booth with the Game Chasers, who are all native Texans, right?
Yeah.
And there's one member of the crew, which is one of the main guys, Billy's cousin. We call him Redneck Chris. Well, he calls himself Redneck Chris. We call him that by default. And he is. He has more guns than anybody we know. He has more motorized things than anyone we know. Like, he's redneck.
He's in. Yeah.
He has been on me to get a cowboy hat since I moved to Texas. And I'm like, no, just no.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to, if he moved to Pennsylvania, I wouldn't ask him to get like some kind of weird Yankee righteous indignation mood going on. Like, no, but they are insistent. And they're like, well, we'll take you to a hatter and we'll get it fit. We'll get you a black one. Okay? We'll get you a black one. And you can have a little Godzilla emblem on it. It'll be great. I'm like, if you'll pay for all of that trash, like, okay, sure. Maybe I'll get a cowboy hat.
You should. I have there's a and I hate to admit it, there's a small part of me that agrees with Schaefer, and his next Caddyshack reference in the chat is pretty damn funny, actually. Yeah, it's definitely for only certain occasions, and I still haven't found that occasion. I just like hats, even though I don't wear them that often.
It's something where, like, for a long time,
yeah,
could pull it off via Says can pull it off via pistols. That's the thing. I have not discharged a firearm since the Marines. I see no reason to do it. Yeah. As a matter of fact, today there was talk of going to a firing range with a certain prominent YouTuber. Not anyone in this circle is like personal friends with. I've met him, obviously, but I don't want to talk deeply about the idea because there's reasons we didn't go.
Right.
But the idea was like all the Game Chasers crew and this fella and myself were going to go and film people shooting. And there was ask of, well, do you want to shoot? And I said, I'd have to wait and see. It's the first opportunity that I would have had.
Yeah.
I had my fill. You know what I mean?
I don't blame you. I
get it.
We do a lot of shooting here. I've got a group of friends that we go shooting out in the desert because, 20 minutes away from me, half hour away from me is basically just open desert land. And so we do that a lot too.
Well, the other side of it too is that, and I hope Tony can back me up on this, but I can't walk into a room without scanning it and finding all the improvised weapons.
I'm sure. I've heard you talk about that before.
Like to me, it's just like where's the stuff I can kill people with? Some people will look for the beer. Some people look for like hot girls. I look for the lethal stuff. And I wasn't even in combat, like Tony was. I just had that training, and then I had to pass that training on to other people, and that happens.
Yep.
Granted, I've never had to really do that.
Yeah.
But it's just it's weird, the stuff that sticks with you, whether it's a training thing, whether it's a nostalgia thing, or whatever. Yeah. And for me, like the firearms just didn't do it. Daniel says Chris wants to see the cowboy. Yeah, of course he does. He's a redneck. What do we know?
I do too.
You're killing me. So here's a question for both of us from Jim Largo. Pleasure to see you, brother.
Yes, definitely.
How does the toy collecting community differ from other groups y'all interact? I think it's an excellent
Yes.
segue into our main topic. But before we do that, I want to get one thing from Melvor here, and it's biased because I just saw the guy yesterday. I love him to death. I love talking to him. I think Jim would good in bowler hat. I think you're wrong. You underestimate the size of my grape, sir.
The noggin
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, like the whole, like I call it the Watson. Like, no, 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 screw that. I appreciate it, but no. So, how does the toy collecting community differ from other communities? I would say that it doesn't.
I don't think it does.
In as much, no, in the sense that I have fancied myself the member of a lot of tribes, and I tend to like be the cartilage that holds a lot of different people together.
Yeah.
Because I collect a wide variety of things. I do consider myself a collector of metal shirts. I have so many black shirts, it's not funny. Hats, there's a reason you see so many of them, because I need to justify the cost.
Yep.
Film, in terms of like DVD, Blu-rays, VHS, and now Betamax. Music on CD, vinyl, the whole thing. Toys, comic books, video games, all the systems that come with those, the different oddities there. And in those collecting communities alone, just like for like, they're all the same. Everyone has like their different levels of things they want to collect. There's things that they want to focus on. There's stuff that they think is bunk. Like grading in the video game community is a complete scam. It's total BS.
Yeah.
Stop it. There's no justification for it. Same thing with I think toys. But I think when it comes to comics, that's where it started.
Yeah.
And that's why I qualified your statement about grading the comics. I didn't want people to get the wrong idea, right?
Yeah, I do think it's different.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But the thing is, like, there's some things that like everyone can agree on. There are things that no one can agree on. And you have very similar kind of behavior.
Yeah. Yep.
With different focuses depending upon the thing. Within metal and music, as far as being a musician or being an artist, it's very similar. Creatives tend to be very soap bubble egos. They like to be in their little hole and do their little thing. They don't want to. They don't want to like have anyone like come in and harp on their thing. I think that there's similarities with every single thing, but I think that when it comes to collecting in general, we're all one big universe of collectors.
You start out with hobby, type of hobby, rabbit hole down that type, and within that type, there are multiple avenues and venues and ways to go. I mean, just look at the toy stuff. I mean, there's collectors who are just Star Wars. There's some that are just G.I. Joe. There's like, for me, I know nothing about Transformers or He-Man hardly beyond the surface level stuff. There's the comic books is the same way. And I think it's how far down the minutia do you want to go? And the motorcycle stuff's the same way. I got into adventure bikes a few years ago. And I had a really bad motorcycle accident. I was out of it for a few years, and I was on a Harley style Yamaha 1700 cc bike and was in a big accident. So I got out of it for a few years, but then I got the bug again. But I got watching the Long Way Down series from Ewan McGregor and Charlie Boorman, and was like, oh God, I want to do that. And so that's what got me into it. So I've been a BMW bike fan ever since then. And that's what I ride now. And that minutia of every little thing it's knowledge. How much knowledge do you want to get? And you can dive in and just spend hours. Like you said, the rabbit hole, it's like binge watching something, but from a knowledge standpoint. I collect a lot of first edition books. And so but I only collect the series I like to read. But there's, you can get into English first edition, US first editions, printer proofs, signed, non-signed, second, third edition stuff. So there's the ins and outs of every community. That's half the fun, is learning it. What's really cool about ours is the hunt part of it. With motorcycles, I do the adventure bikes, but I also do I help kind of restore classic bikes. British
Mhm.
race bikes and stuff. I've got a group here in town of buddies who I do stuff with that are off and on that are. I've got a 1960s Norton Dominator being restored right now. And so just old stuff like that. And when I talk to those guys, they're so far past me as far as their knowledge base. When they talk, sometimes half the stuff they talk about, I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying. And I know the toy community is the same way. There's and especially like with Joe's, learning you listen to Matt Swafford talk about Joe's and you're like, oh, how do you get that stuff in your head? And I saw
tell me about it.
I know. And he's amazing at that stuff. And so here's
where it gets even worse. He was doing the entire stream
on his phone,
from a computer,
on his phone,
from a phone.
Yeah, and he's like,
and I'm showing him on the screen this freaking big, this far from his face.
Oh,
he's
this
still
is
like
Tiger Force score block from it. Yeah.
I don't get it. And just Keith, I see your comment. I'm just going to read it since we're still on the question. But he says, "Always sit facing the entrance. Never sit with your back to anyone. Everything is a threat. No such thing as a low risk." Yeah, that's why I keep this right next to my desk. Not opening toy boxes, but it's the thing.
I have a safe out in the garage full of guns that I do gun stuff with too. Mm-hmm. So it's the same kind of community. And again, overall, there's a mentality to certain communities. Obviously, there is with the gun community. Obviously, there is with the motorcycle stuff, and there is the same way with us.
But there's hunting in motorcycles. There's hunting in guns. There's hunting in game collecting, because I think it's nuanced differences.
It is.
So, like, I think in the classic, automotive, biking, any kind of motorized anything, you're looking for those specific parts. Or can I get a shell? Like if it's like an outboard motor for a boat.
Yep.
It looks beat up and rusted, but the inside might have all these little gears.
It's the resto mod, thing.
Right.
Cars are exactly the same way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You kidding me? Like, I know people that will go to junkyards the same way we go to flea markets.
Exactly. Well, take the Jeep community. Fun. The Jeep community. I mean, it's like a Swiss Army knife of vehicles of all the crap that you can put on that thing, and the AR-15 community is the same way. You can build anything you want out of that stuff, and so, but ours. I think ours is the difference. Ours is there's the history behind it and the nostalgia factor, as well as some of the rarity of things, of course, and trying to find it.
I think that we could whittle that down even more. I think the difference is the intensity of the shared experience.
Right.
If you have someone that like you'll like motorcycles for a different reason than this other guy, and you have very different experiences of bikes, you rode different bikes to start with, and you kind of meet, you find a crossroad, and that's where your friendship forms. With toys, you can start way back here and be like, oh, the same cartoon, the same toy line, this toy, like Michael and I from Retro Blasting are very different people.
Yeah.
But we have some similar cores in our emotionality, but I think that we have some very similar love for some very similar properties, but we come from different angles. But we can agree to agree.
Right.
There's certain, like, he loves Back to the Future and the aesthetic in a way that I do not.
Right.
But I latched on to the comedy, the music very, very much. That was hugely influential. Like Alan Silvestri was very influential on like my rhythmic sensibilities.
Yeah.
Very early on.
I love movie soundtracks. I still listen to them every day.
Same. And like I would sit there listening to like Alan Silvestri, John Williams, Danny Elfman, but I'd be sitting there doing death metal drums to them to learn timing and syncopations and improvisation and stuff. And that's how but the thing is, like, we both love, and I'm just using Back to the Future as an example, like we both love that. And it's something that we come from different places, but we can have a discussion about it, and it's just woo. And then with toys, it's even broader, which I think is great. Whereas with video games, it's similar, but not quite the same. It's close. But I think with video games, as an example, I can say, oh, I had an NES, I loved it. But there's like 700 freaking games for that system.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have some of the same games that you had, we just go like NES.
Yep.
Whereas like because the branding is the toy, is the property,
Yep.
whereas the games are kind of interchangeable things.
Yeah.
So I do think that toys have that core shared experience that in very few cases
Yep.
aren't going to differ so much.
Right.
And
I agree.
but by embracing the differences we do have, we enrich the community, we enrich the shared experience, and it only gets better over time.
Well, this community has been amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
I've only been in this community, I mean, honestly, for maybe 10 months, a year, probably about a year. And by say in the community, I mean lurking in the chats during a lot of the early live streams I was watching, and maybe having a comment here or there. But I've made some amazing friends already because of this, that I think will be, lifelong friends, and I know they will. And they're in Europe, they're across the country, they're around the world, everywhere. And so this community has really, I don't see that with a lot of other places because of the communication venues that we use through YouTube and through chats and stuff. I just don't see that. This community is amazing, and because of that, I think that's what draws me to it a lot. Even because honestly, my collecting, I'm getting close to the end of what I would like to get for for a lot of my collections. You can only have so many stormtroopers. Well, you can always have more stormtroopers, but you know what I mean. So there's always going to be a little bit of that, but yeah, you can always get more.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's this community is the thing that really impresses me and keeps me here a lot nowadays.
There's one other thing I think that really separates out toys versus games. So, like in the retro gaming community, and I know Melvor can back me up on this. At least I hope he can. Even though he's much more a toy guy. Anyway, in retro gaming, there is that camaraderie, there is that shared sense of community, but I do find there's a lot more dissension. There's a lot more
Yeah,
because
that's the
people
social part of it. Yeah.
NES versus Sega Master System versus Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis and stuff, all that kind of crap. You don't really have a lot of arguments like G.I. Joe was better.
Repro. Yeah.
Well, that's different. I think that's different though,
Really?
because you have the same argument in gaming where in gaming it's emulation versus the real hardware
Oh
kind
yeah.
of a thing
Oh really?
and preservation. So you
Okay.
have like an overarching argument that's there. It's
Yeah.
very similar to repro versus non-repro, and I see both sides of both of these arguments in both communities. I understand it. I think it's all a bunch of noise, and you just do what you do at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, I agree.
And
Yeah.
and I think this is coming around to my point. James Salzberg says this particular community is very welcoming. Often not the case. People here are not trying to make you feel small for lack
Yep.
of knowledge.
I agree,
Exactly.
James. Yep.
This is where I was getting at with regard to Melvor. And he absolutely is backing me up. He's like, it's very clannish in gaming, whereas toys are
I've heard
not
that before
as
too.
much. Not as much. And I see what you did there, by the way, Melvor. I see it. I respect it, but I see it.
You love the Zoom.
I do because I'm trying to emphasize a point. Well, the thing is, we're about to do a draft of the scraps from that GI Joe lot because there's some stuff that was too heavy to ship. That Matt said, "Well, have at it. Like, do whatever you want with it." And I gave Melvor first crack, and we're going to do a draft. He just lost first pick.
Yeah.
Over that little pun right there. And he's going to say, I didn't mean it. But at the end of the day, like, I'm having fun with my buddy. But that kind of comes into the whole thing. Like, I was living vicariously through the toy chasers for years. I didn't seek out other toy collecting channels or social media, like, because that was a sister show to the Game Chasers and a community I was very fond of. And then now I'm kind of like in the center of it all now, which is still weird, even 2 years later. But 2.5 years later. Jeez.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it's something where with toys, I always felt like, well, if I start collecting now in my mid 40s, I'm going to be a pariah forever.
Yeah.
Clearly, that is not the case.
No.
Uh,
No.
but
Well, and it's funny because when I first started getting
I
into it,
was
after,
fearful of it.
a bunch of us started chatting, I felt bad because it's like, oh, hey, look what I've got. Look, you end up doing a show and tell, and it's like,
Right.
God, I sound like kind of an ass because I'm saying, oh, look what I have.
Yeah.
But obviously there's collections out there 30 times larger than mine. But it's a point of pride to try to find what you want to find, and you want to share it with your new friends and stuff, and
Absolutely.
that's why I think like Tony's and Michael's Patreon walls, community walls, are so much fun because you can throw stuff there and go, guys, look what I found, and people will share with that, going, instead of going, oh, you son of a bitch, why'd you get that? I want that. You don't get that aspect, which is nice.
It really is. It's something where, so
I know I'm reading some of those too.
yeah, like some of the stuff that I'm going to show off in this video coming up. Like, I more than once, I think, apologize or justify the fact that I'm like super happy to have gotten these things.
That's the way I get
They were,
too.
but they were free, so I feel awful.
Yeah, I know.
And I feel bad that I look up how rare they are.
Yeah.
So I just want to understand, like, is he just getting things that are 50 cents and just give me something that's 50 cents and I'm dumb for really like having a big investment?
I'm the same way. The place where I got the Eternia, as well as this wrong way, the Imperial Shuttle. I've bought things from the guy. He's a great guy that lives, he's got a shop a few hours away from me. I drive over every once in a while, and I've picked up stuff, and I got home and I'm like, why did you sell that to me so cheap? Other things, exactly what it should be for,
Right.
what the cost is. But everyone's like, I mean, I bought 20 Star Wars figures from him for $1 a piece, and it's just like, oh my God, that's awesome. And I see Pete still in the chat. Talk to Pete about that. He's a master at the scrounge, and in fact, I should make a shirt for him that says Master Scrounger, because that's what he is. He's perfect at that. I think out of everybody in this group, he is it.
I think you had it right the first time. Master of the scrounge. And have scrounge bigger. Yeah, I'm telling you. And
Yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know why I think this, but I feel like, and this is going to sound weird, and Pete, don't get mad at me, but I feel like that should all be in the font of the rebooted He-Man series from the early 90s. Because it's just a good font. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Keith Knight says, this community right here has saved me through some really dark days over the last 18 months. There's healthy love and respect here, and he genuinely loves all of us. And it's mutual, for sure.
Keith has become a great friend. And Sal, I see Sal in the chat too now. And Sal, that's perfect what you just said. And really good to see you here too.
He won't let me bring it up because I had to approve the comment. It's stupid. But I'll go ahead and read it out here. It says, there's only 2 rules, really. Don't be a dick and be respectful when you disagree. So really, there's only 1 rule because it's basically the same rule. Exactly correct.
Don't be a dick. Don't be a troll.
Be a dick.
Be an adult. And
thank you.
How hard is that? Because supposedly we are. I don't say anything to anybody in the chats that I wouldn't say straight to their face.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
so this community is amazing.
I think regardless of community, although for toys, certainly this is true, but it's just treat people the way you would treat them to their face, and you have nothing to worry about.
Well,
and to be honest, like, there are some people that I would be a real jerk to in person, and I am a jerk to that person remotely.
Too. Yeah,
I have no issue with that.
Well, and I hate to say it, but they are just toys.
Yeah, open your toys, play with your toys.
Exactly. Yeah, they're just toys. I've told my wife a few times. I said, if the house burns down and you need to grab anything out of here, it's really not the toys. It's a few of the comic books, actually, and there's a couple toys.
One, they're way more flammable.
Yeah. Told her grab my Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander and grab a few of the comics that can help us get back on our feet. But yeah.
There you go.
So yeah, it's crazy how much fun this has been.
Shabby, you'd be surprised what's their amazing hobby, what's their formula.
Yeah.
People will find things like they're, on a long enough timeline as this channel grows, some jerk off is going to comment on this a year from now and be like, what? I'm not watching this. He's not wearing a hat. Some jerk off will do that. Yeah. That's a thing. People get weird about the smallest little things. I don't understand it.
Yep.
I let them be.
Yeah. To me, this hobby is kind of like alcohol. It is a magnifying glass on people's personalities. There you go. I need to go get a glass of scotch. That's another thing.
I get jolly. I get very jolly.
I'm a happy drunk.
Anyone who talks,
I'm a happy toy collector.
You know what I am? I'm a show and tell drunk. I'm a show and tell. Because I'm like, have you heard this band? Have you seen this movie? Have you seen this YouTube video? Oh, how about this? Look at the tits on that. But that's where I'm at. I will get introspective. I might become slightly more emotional.
Me too.
But I'm a very sensitive person in general. Like I freely express my emotions all the time, as much as I possibly can, within mores and so forth.
Right.
But after a few beers, there's just a little more of that.
I'm the same way.
Then there are people, trolls, for example, are like, G.I. Joe's dumb, or whatever they're doing. Epic Badger. Grindhead slicking his hair back. Clearly, he's just a piece of the greaser crowd. Little fella. This is my there's no product in this. You know what? Screw this. Hang on.
Pete, yeah. Pete's like,
this is my natural hair. This is the way that it goes.
I've always wanted to have hair like that. I never
easier to manage in the moment. Huh?
I could never pull hair off like that. I always wanted to.
It's getting thinner, but it's still mostly there.
Yeah, I'm getting thinner. The thinnerness right there. Yeah. Yeah. So. Yep.
No, go ahead and make your point. We can come back to this.
No, Chris. Yeah, just reading what Chris was saying, and exactly. And is everyone? I love that everyone has their own opinion on the little minutia that we deal with all the time in the hobby, and it's so cool to see the different views. I mean, we've talking to everyone here in the groups and stuff. Everyone has different things they focus on, and there's not a lot of people that collect adventure people, or there's not a lot of people that maybe certain other things. I don't have a lot of friends that collect books. I've got 3 or 4 friends that collect comic books, and we'll go on hunts together for things just as much as we will with the toy stuff. And I'm dragging them into the toy world here and there too, because it's so cross-pollinates so easily.
Gerard has to go here shortly. He says, y'all are amazing souls in chat. Gotta bounce and work for you. Thank you, Gerard.
Yes,
Gerard,
thank you.
I don't know where Gerard came from. The first time I ever saw him was in one of my chats, but he's been just amazing. He's a great dude. Love him to death. And everyone in here, like, I'm seeing all these names just scrolling by. I'm like, I love all of you so much.
I know.
It's cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Bjorn, I see you in there a lot. I see in the chat a lot. So he's always got some really good stuff.
Bjorn is always the first person in my chat.
He was tonight too.
As soon as the stream gets announced, he'll come in.
I love it. Some of these streams, if you go to you'll show up a half hour before the stream starts and the chat's already going.
I think that from what I understand, that started with Iconicon, and it's just kind of continued.
People just migrating over and over. Yeah. Yep.
And I tend to kind of, you all know this, like if I see an opportunity to kind of Iconicon it up and just kind of because I watch all of my friends' schedules and I'm like, ooh, where can I put some content and link all this shit together?
Yep.
Because I'm addicted to hanging out with you lot. Yeah. I will talk for 3 hours if it means hanging out with them.
I listened to like Jody was saying. He goes, I took time off for a Comic-Con from work. And a few other people that we talked with is like, oh, I'm taking time off. I'm like, why are you taking time off for that? And then afterwards, like halfway through, I was like, shit, I should have taken time off for a Comic-Con.
Michael Schaefer's 100% correct. Be sure to just subscribe in the link in the description if you have not. That goes to Chasing 80s Toys, gets you guys taken care of. Because what you guys are doing, and I can only imagine now that it's like, because I realized that you were going to contribute to that channel, whether you were a member of the crew or not. That was clear that you had.
Just for fun.
But in your head and heart, how does that change the moment you like get the little badge, that little pip that says, "Okay, you're part of the crew now"? Does something go through your head at that point?
Well, it's pressure. It's a little bit of pressure. I mean, I told Chris, and Chris came to Pete and I with the idea because it's totally on him, his idea. And so if it fails, it's his fault. And
sure, blame the Dutchman. Sure,
yeah, he's going to bed. He's fine. But honestly, Chris is doing the hard work. He's the one doing the editing. He's doing the sound work and that kind of stuff. And Pete and I are out there having fun, just taking video. Yeah, we have to kind of organize our thoughts a little bit here and there, and we're just going to keep doing that. And it's amazing that Chris is bringing us on to do that. I mean, I think Pete and I both would have just kept doing it like this anyways, because it's so much damn fun. And to make it a trio, and it's great. There was a part of me like, gosh, do I want to do that? And then I realized I'm not going to be doing anything more than what I've already been doing. Just keeping my eyes out for stuff and filming things when I need to and can. And it's still part of the fun and going out and doing stuff. It's just now sometimes you're going to have a camera with you.
Yeah, I think now it's just more purposeful, right?
Yeah.
Because you understand that
structure.
There's a result to this, right?
Yeah. You got to write a little bit of a script in your head, and as you go, and you're like when I went to Portland, I'm like, okay, I need to set this up. I need to maybe do a little voiceover here. And so I kind of map it out for Chris, and try to give him some a framework to work from, and then he puts it together.
And I think you will find this the more of this you do. For over the weekend, we filmed about 35, 40 minutes of footage.
Yeah.
Of which only 15 was really poignant and useful.
Yeah.
And we got lucky. Usually it's only going to be about a quarter of it that's really going to be doing anything. And the only reason that it's usable is that, this is great B-roll type stuff. I can speed up, slow down, I could talk over it, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that, and I don't want to speak for Chris, but as an editor, I can say that for him, it's a dream come true because the footage just arrives.
Yeah.
And he can create a story and do his thing and put music to it and all that stuff. And it's immensely fun. That's arguably, aside from actually doing the hunt, the hunt's always the fun part.
Exactly.
But when you're making videos, the edit is where it becomes really cool because you can flip this over here and do this and take your hat off or whatever the case may be. And do something cool. Again, be like you said, be creative.
It's a creative outlet.
Sure. But when we talk about communicating with collectors, YouTube obviously is a huge tool for that.
Yeah.
But there's so many other avenues, and it's hard to keep up sometimes.
It is.
Whether it's texting for the people that you trust, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Discord, Telegram.
I try to stay out of a lot of that stuff,
and that's fair.
Yeah, I don't.
If you're not already entrenched in that stuff,
right?
I would imagine becoming more of a, for lack of a better term, a public face.
Right.
That might be a little overwhelming as to not know where to go or where you want to compromise your stance.
That's my biggest fear of this.
For you?
Yeah, that's my biggest fear of this is I want to keep a separate life, of course, and I don't mind mixing stuff to some degree, but I don't want to, and I definitely will let people know my opinions on things. But the churn that you see with some of the assholes that are out there, nobody wants to be a part of that. But but I'm not afraid to jump into that if I need to, and I have no problem, giving my opinion on that kind of stuff. But to me, it is a creative outlet. And like I said, in my job, in my profession, I've been to hundreds of photo shoots and video shoots, and because I've worked in advertising for 25 years and marketing,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
and so I know that process and how that works, and so that's fun to me. And so that's what, just putting that lane into the toy side of things is really what's kind of fun. And I don't know if I'll want to keep doing it. I don't know. And I've had this conversation with a few people, and it's like, do I want it? Let's see how it goes, and just see where we go with this. And I think Chris and Pete are great guys to do this with.
I agree.
Because they have kind of the same morals and same values for doing this too. Chris has never done this to make a living off of. He's never done this he's doing it for his friends and for the fun. And I think it's awesome if there could be some really big toy channels out there that have integrity, and like Tony and like Michael and the other guys in our groups that we all know and love. If they can make that into this huge thing and make a living off of this, I think that's awesome.
But that isn't necessarily everyone's goal.
Right.
And so as someone who knows advertising and marketing, when I say this, you're going to be like, well, oh yeah, duh. But you may not have thought of this, and it's something that I had to do as a musician. It's something that I've had to do as a Twitch streamer. It's something I've had to do as YouTube.
Yeah.
You have to create a brand, even if your brand is still Jeff Parker.
Right. I know.
Put it over here. You have to. You can't not do that. Like, the toy community is the first time that I've allowed people that are appreciators, supporters of my work, that I've allowed into my personal social media.
Yeah, same here.
The first time in over 10 years. Because in the music, it got to be a really bad place. There was a story that I told on a Patreon stream with Michael, where this cat from Indonesia was really into my band and was just always messaging me, which, whatever, it's fine.
Sure.
At the time, when you're doing music full time, there's lots of downtime.
Well, I'm sure.
Not the case if you're a YouTuber or a Twitch streamer. But he was just convinced that I was swimming in t-shirts and I could just send him a t-shirt.
Isn't that weird? Free. Yeah.
That's part of their culture, though, because in Indonesia, because they are so unbelievably poor, they look at the West, they look at the U.S. and think we're all rich, which is invariably not true.
Right.
And I was like, look, I can't, like, it's the old adage we have here in the West of like, well, if I give it to you, I have to do it for everybody else.
Right.
And we weren't as big as he thought we were.
Yeah.
If I was something like Cannibal Corpse or Metallica size, like, yeah, I'll send you a t-shirt.
Sure, here you go.
But that wasn't the case. So I feel like that was the point where I said, okay, I got to stop. And I cut my Facebook friends in half, and I continued to prune for the next 3 years until I got it down. And then it slowly creeps back up and stuff. And I'm happy to say that when it comes to the toy stuff, I'm happy to do that. But I still have a Facebook page. I still have a Twitter page, which, although it is my technically personal page, I have one with my full name.
Same here.
That I never I never use it, but I have like a Grindhead Jim one that I used for pretty much everything, but it's still a brand. And the YouTube channel is a brand. And I can separate from it. And if I don't want to get notifications, I can turn all that shit off and be fine with it.
To me, the social media stuff's a bit of a cesspool, especially Facebook.
And I'm hardly ever on there.
I'm a lurker on a lot of stuff where I'm really into racing, Formula One and IndyCar, open wheel racing, and so I follow all that crap too. And so I've gone to a bunch of races, a couple overseas and here in the U.S. and Canada and stuff. So I follow. That's another hobby. It's a whole different thing too. And so, but that's kind of what I do. My social media stuff is just following that kind. I started following some of the guys, like G.I. Joeberg. Really love what they're doing on social media. I come at this stuff a lot of from a designer standpoint. Like, I love your color palette, your fonts, and your logo is fucking awesome. Your the Godzilla one you use, and I think that's just amazing. And the one that you have on the promo card for this stream is one I just threw together for Chris, and it's like, I might want to redo that eventually. And what's the brand look like? That. And marketing people are shallow assholes anyways. And so,
Well, yeah.
But it's all about how we look. And so I don't like to say I'm a marketing person. I like to say I'm a creative designer.
Yeah. When because I did not draw the Grindzilla avatar.
Yeah.
I outsourced that because they were also going to incorporate it into like screens and stuff like that. But I gave them a color palette. I appreciate that. I did pay good money for it, but
I want a shirt of it.
They're available.
I'm
right
gonna
now.
get one. I'm gonna get one. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I definitely want one.
I'll share the link privately later.
Okay.
By the way, it's grindheadgym.com/merch. But
there you go.
There you go. I don't really flaunt that too much because I don't make hardly anything like $1 off of a shirt. It's just because it's all print to order stuff.
Sure.
But I was lucky enough to go with a design house that was really communicative and understood that as a creative, I'm very into this. I want to do it a certain way.
Yeah.
And the problem I ran into was I wanted the dark green and the gold.
Yeah.
That's also the intellectual property of Godzilla. It's very similar. And I tried very hard. I was like, can you kind of get it a little bit further away from Godzilla without losing it? And every time they tried, it went too far. And I was like, well, now it's not. Okay. So I'm talking to a buddy of mine who's a CGI artist and designer and stuff. And what we're looking to do is retool it to where he's more punk, to where all the fins are like Liberty spikes.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
So it's more like Liberty spikes and all that. And change the color palette to be more of like a purple and a gray and a black. So where it's got more punk vibe to it.
Yeah.
But shades of those colors that also play with the green. I can't lose the green. I love the green so much.
That's the iconic part of it. There's some base bedrock parts of that are there. Yeah.
I think so. But I feel like the way to do it would be to like keep his skin tones in blacks and grays. But just like with the, okay, so if you think of like a Neil Adams Batman, where you're using blue to do the highlights, where it's mostly black and gray, but it's the blue with the highlights, use the purple for that. And that would be enough to differentiate and make it singular.
Right.
But these are like nerdy artist marketing.
I know. It's the same. I do the same thing. And like when I did my logo for that Chris is using, it's like, do I, a little research on, 80's grids, Miami Vice colors, that kind of thing. And, Patrick Nagel prints, Duran Duran album cover, that kind of stuff. A huge Duran Duran fan when I was a kid, even though I'm more of a metal fan. And it's just like, you still have your guilty pleasures, Duran Duran, everyone has. And so, looking at a lot of that kind of stuff and just the vibe of that time period as weird because it is chasing 80s toys.
Right. So all of that in mind, I know that you have a hard out, so I want to respect that as much as I possibly can.
I know. I'd love to keep going.
I know we discussed this earlier. I know you have a hard out and everything. So, and I also know that based upon how the conversation has gone, we could easily go for a long time.
So we really could.
I have guests scheduled over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Any time after that, we're going to have to bring all three of you back in.
That'd be fun.
It would have to be a special date and time because I know schedules are what they are.
Sure, that's not for Chris,
and certainly, I'm not, busting any cherries. It's been done, Jody. If you're watching, I love you. You did a great job with that thing.
He did.
He's awesome. To kind of do a certain thing. So I want to kind of bring this back around and say that I think you are a much more valuable member of the community than you give yourself credit for. I think
Just a cog in the wheel.
But the thing is, every cog in the wheel turns the gears to keep the machine rolling on.
True.
And you have a very easygoing vibe. You have a lot of knowledge. You have humility and a lot of humor, and all of
Oh,
those
thanks. I
things
appreciate that.
really. I'm just speaking truth to it, man. And I feel like we need as many Jeff Barkers as we can get.
Thank you.
So thank you for being here in the community. Thank you for being here on the show. So the last thing that I want thought wise for you to leave with is this. If you had to give advice to either yourself a couple years ago or anyone who is lurking and maybe wants to break out a little bit more, express themselves more, based on your experience, what advice would you give them?
I mean, don't be afraid because this is a welcoming community. I mean, you've found the right place between retro blasting, between analog toys, between you, between Jody, between Chris, um, uh, Dave, Vintage Toy Rush. There's just so many great channels out there, and that community that some of the bigger channels like Tony's and Michael's have built is so welcoming, and it's what I think a lot of us have gotten into because of them. And I think if you ever want to you can participate at any level you want to. You can work, you can do what I'm doing, dive in a little bit more farther into it. You can be in every single chat, and don't be afraid to do it because you're going to make some good friends doing it.
I honestly think that one, that's excellent advice and a perfect coda to our discussion. So I think, given with your heart out and given how poignant that was, let's put a pin in this discussion. We'll come back around to it with the entire Chasing 80s, and
Yes, we love that. That'd be awesome.
I can promise you this, and you can take this to the bank. I will have you on individually again before Christmas.
Oh, cool. That'd
I
be
want.
fun. Yeah.
All right.
Anytime we want it. That'd be awesome.
Soon enough. But in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your night. Thank you for being here. And folks, the stream is not yet over.
Yeah, everyone in the chat, thank you. Really cool seeing everybody there, and I appreciate it, Jim. This has been really fun. I was a little nervous because it's my first time doing this alone, and so this is awesome.
No, you're great at it, and we're going to keep getting your feet wet in this process, man.
Thanks.
We'll
okay,
right?
see you guys.
Cheers, brother. Wow. He was wonderful. Thank you so much for him for being here, but for you all also for being here. I would like to stick around a little bit longer if everyone's amenable. I will edit the live stream when it's finished to just have the conversation so that people who watch later will only have to deal with that. But I want to hang out for a bit. So let's do that if you guys are okay with that. Mover says, great discussion. I appreciate that. It's not already over, Bjorn. We're still doing some stuff. But I knew going into this that he had limited time, like a limited time he could start and a limited time he could finish. But we both were like really solid on the date, and we said, "Yeah, screw it, let's just go." So we are, and we did, and it was great for me anyway. But I do want to come back to some stuff that was brought up earlier because I've seen a lot of great advice in chat, but I want to give my own spin on it. So I want to just talk about that while we settle into just a few more minutes. I'd like to cap it off at around 2 hours, but I'm not in a huge hurry either way. I just am still coming down from Retropalooza. I like hanging out with people, and I missed all of you. So